money is not a solution to your financial problems. Ideas are. Anytime you have money or you have money issues, anytime you have financial issues and you go get in debt or borrow money from somewhere else without coming up with new ideas to create more money, chances are after 30 days of borrowing the money, you'll be in more debt. Because if you use the money to pay rent, then rent will be due. And it's the same philosophy when it comes to weight loss. Dieting is not the solution to weight loss. Knowledge is. The biggest problem with most people, and especially most women, is they keep on repeating the same things they've been doing for the last 30 years. It is a cycle of failure. You consistently put on weight, start what you used to do 5 years ago, fail and keep on doing the same thing. So what I need to do today is, for us to have a discussion on how your human body works. There is nothing more important and more fascinating than the human body. And the human body, there is millions and millions of chemical reactions happening inside your body. And this chemical reaction collectively is what we call the human metabolism. For you to be able to function, for me to be able to talk to you, for you to be able to listen to me, for me to be able to use my hands, for me to be able to walk, I need energy. And the body constantly is in an energy churning process. For you to create energy for your body, we need to eat food. Food is simply feeding your face so that your body can generate energy. And for us to eat food, food comes divided into 3 macroorganisms. The 3 macros that we call, number 1 here, the first macro is what we call carbohydrates. And under carbohydrates, it's divided into 3 macronutrients. We've got what we call starchy carbohydrates. We've got what we call simple or processed carbohydrates. Simple, processed, some schools of thought will call it sugary carbohydrates. And of course, we have what we call fibrous carbohydrates, fiber or roughage. These are the 3 micronutrients inside the macronutrients of carbohydrates. Starchy carbohydrates, these are the carbohydrates when we cook them or when we use them, they're as close to nature as possible. What comes to mind here? We have things like rice, we have things like pasta, we have sweet potatoes, we have things like yams, we have things like cassavas, have things like jango oats, have things like, we have things like couscous, among many other things. So this has to be broken down into what the body can use, which we call glucose and stored as glycogen. Simple processed sugars, these are the carbohydrates that your body doesn't have to do much. In simple terms, these are the things that you eat, they feel very good in your lips, but in the deep inside your mind, you know they're not good for you. Whatever goes in your lips will end up on your hips. These are your normal sugary, these are your sweets, these are your cold drinks, these are your cakes, these are your croissants, candy, chocolate, dried fruits, among many others. Anytime you're waiting in the supermarket, waiting for the cashier to open up, anything that is next to you fits into this group. Fiber or roughage, these are things that grow off the ground, and in most cases, this is what it has very low caloric content, but very low calories, but it's very bulky, which means it fills you up without the risk of overeating. And in most cases, this becomes our veggies, becomes our salads. We have things like legumes, and under legumes, we're talking about things like beans and lentils, even though these are also very high in good carbohydrates. and we have things like husks. They all belong into this. Now this becomes under carbohydrates. Then the second one here is protein. Protein is anything that walks, anything that flies, or anything that swims fits under protein. Protein is your building blocks. For me to be able to stand like this, it means I have to defy gravity. And for me to do that so that my skeleton is not being pulled downwards, I need to build muscle. So protein is simply, muscle is simply stored protein. Here you'll have your chicken, you'll have your beef, you'll have your eggs, you have things like pork for people that do. I hate pork. You have things like wild game. You have things like protein shakes, among many other things. And then the third one here is fats. Fats have a very bad reputation. Most of us are afraid of fats. When we look at fat, you see that slab of fat on a piece of meat, you see it sticking on the back of your ass. But fat is one, we have good and bad fat. We cannot survive without fat. There's so many reasons why we need fat. But the number one reason why I'm going to emphasize why you need fat here is we need fat as our main source of fuel. And we have good fat. And the most common fat here, we're going to use olive oil, cold press, the cold press olive oil. We have coconut butter. We have coconut butter, anything under coconut foods. We have nuts and seeds. We have omega-3s, which you get in your fish, and all those. These are our avocados. These are beautiful. These are our fats. Now, this becomes the main macronutrients. But I'm going to park protein aside, and I'm going to focus more on carbohydrates and fats, because I want to take you through how the human system generates and uses energy. Because the minute you understand how your body converts everything that you put in into a source of raw energy that you use to work out, that you use as a construction worker, that you use to play with your kids, then it becomes easier for us to talk about human metabolism and weight loss. If you look at this, I'm going to simplify the human metabolism. It is a very complicated system, but for the sake and easiness of understanding this workshop, this is the representation of the human metabolism. We have two fuel sources. Number one here, you have your liver and your muscle cells. And this is where this is where we store glycogen, which is your sugar. Then we've got your blood vessels here. Then we have your fat cells here. And this is where we store your fats in the form of triglycerides. Right here we have your brain, which is the main control center of your body. And under your brain here, using your hypothalamus, we have roughly here, this is going to be the representation of your pancreas. And your pancreas releases 3 hormones, but the 2 primary hormones that we're going to focus on here, one is insulin, 2 is glucagon, and the third one here is leptin. But we're going to park leptin and focus on this too. Now, if you look at this, you're either using sugar as your main source of fuel or you're using fat. But as long as sugar is the main source of fuel for your day-to-day activities, for your workouts, chances of you breaking down fat and becoming a fat burner are minimized. I will give you a very simple scenario like what happens when we go to a restaurant. The first thing when we walk into a restaurant that the waiter will always put in front of you is always bread. And in most cases, it will always either be white bread or white raw. The point of this is always to manipulate your hormones. Depending on one's metabolism, most bread is going to be broken down into the fastest sugar, which is glycogen, faster than you think, between 10 to 20 minutes. The minute that happens, your brain, now remember, I'm being melodramatic here. Your brain doesn't really care how you want to look. Most people come to gym because they want to lose weight and fit in their two-piece bikini suit. You want to fit in your skinny jeans. You've got a wedding coming on in 12 weeks. You've got a school reunion. Your brain doesn't really care. All your brain cares about, are you going to be alive or dead? And if you engage in any activities where your brain feels that your life is threatened, then automatically your brain will do everything possible to nullify that, and it will either stop you or it will cut off your energy supply completely so that you don't carry out that function. So when you eat this and your blood sugar level goes off, it goes up melodramatically, and I'm playing this. When your sugar goes up, straight away, sugar goes up, insulin goes up, you're going to become diabetic, you're going to get into a coma, and you're going to die. And that's how your brain sees it. So your brain sees sugar here from the bread, insulin is released, insulin increases chances of you becoming diabetic. When you get diabetic, you get into a coma, and if you get into a coma, you die. This is how your brain interprets all these things. So to avoid this scenario, so what will your brain do? It will communicate with your insulin and tell your insulin, this person's life is in danger. Insulin is released. It will always, the point of insulin is to make sure that all the blood sugar in your bloodstream is taken out, and it's going to be dumped either in your liver or your muscle cells. Now, depending on how much sugar or carbohydrates you've been eating over time, majority of us are eating carbohydrate heavy meals. So which means our liver and muscle cells are completely full. So what happens here, because this is full, it takes it where? Into your fat cells. Now the ugliness with your fat cells is they'll never be full. So this straight away your blood sugar level drops, the waiter comes back again, and what does he do? In most cases, we'll always order, the first thing that we're going to order after bread or slice of bread or white roll is always a cold drink. It will be a glass of wine. It might be a glass of juice. It might be a caffeinated drink, whatever. Same thing happens. Your brain panics. Insulin is released again. It comes here. Now remember, we've had already 2 spikes here. Okay? We've had already 2 spikes here. The problem here that most of us are not aware is the minute this sugar is stored in your fat cells because of the high insulin, the sugar comes down in your bloodstream, but your insulin stays up in your bloodstream. The sugar comes down, but the insulin stays up. And if the insulin stays up, it means we have no access to this stored fat as our main source of fuel. The point of us working out, the point of us eating right, is to be able to access the stored body fat in our bodies as our main source of fuel. But if our insulin is high, because we're consuming a lot of sugar in the form of starch, automatically it means we have no access to this. At this point, your blood sugar level drops again because of the influx of insulin. This is when the waiter comes now. This is a drink. The waiter comes now and we order our main meal. Irrespective of the quality and quantity of the meal, if you order too much protein because your hormones have been manipulated here, too much of a good thing is a bad thing. The same thing happens. Insulin comes up. So we keep on repeating this cycle. And one thing I need you to take note of here is, anytime you keep on, your blood sugar level keeps on rising, you're having a sugar crash. And every time you have all these highs and lows, insulin is your fat storing hormone. Anytime your insulin flares up, for it to clear all the excess sugar in your bloodstream, it has to store it. Where? As fat. 2 things you need to understand how your fat cells work. We've got what we call hypoplasma. Hypoplasma is where your fat cells can multiply themselves. Hyperplasmia is where these fat cells, they break into small little parts and they keep on getting bigger and bigger. And then the other thing, how fat cells become bigger, is just one fat cell growing as big as it can. So there is no limit. Depending on what kind of fat cell that you have, there is no limit to how fat you can get. So this goes on over time. Because of the main meal, it was a very big meal, you had a sugar crash. What will always happen when the waiter comes next to you to ask you how was your meal, we'll always order a dessert. Same thing happens. Now you can see this yo-yoing happening within this meal. And when we finish the dessert, in most cases, when it's clearing the table, we'll always have cappuccino. Now remember, what we need to avoid is these spikes. Anytime it goes up, insulin goes up. Now insulin is your fat storing hormone. Glucagon is your fat burning hormone. These two hormones are inversely related. And until we control insulin, we cannot be able to lose fat or lose weight. Now this one here is what I call a sugar burner. In this state, which majority of people are a sugar burner. But for you to be able to consistently keep on losing weight and burning fat at rest, you need to turn from being a sugar burner to a fat burner. How do we do that? And that's the science and the psychology we use behind the Dream Body Fitness Challenge. What we're going to do for the first 7 days, we're going to put you on a detox eating plan where we're going to deplete all the stored liver, all the stored sugar in your liver and muscle cells. And by doing that, automatically your insulin levels are going to drop. And if your insulin levels drop, remember, insulin and glucagon are inversely related. If this one is up, this one is down. And if this one is up, this one is down. So by suppressing insulin, and to suppress insulin, it means we have to control or limit the amount of starch that we're putting in. Automatically, we activate glucagon. Now, glucagon is the only hormone that has the key to these fat cells. Remember, you coming to gym, you exercising, number one, you need to change your body composition. You need to feed the muscle and burn the fat. The second thing you need here is you need to change the shape of your body. You need a nice small waist, you need nice tight shoulders, nice lean arms, you need your bum nice and pucky. But for that to happen, the ratio of muscle to fat has to change. And that cannot change until we get into this box and start using this as our main source of fuel. And that is the science and the psychology behind the Dream Body Fitness Challenge. And if you are ready, if you feel this is the right time, and if you've struggled all this time to lose weight, then click on the link below and I will give you more information on how I can help you, on how we can work together to give you the body that you deserve. God bless, and I hope to see you in the inside. Whether you're coming to us physically to work out in our session, in our club, or you're working out in another gym, you need a program, we can assist you online. This is your coach, Steve. God bless and take care.